make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other's gold. A circle is round, it has no end. That's how long I want to be your friend. And good morning to the crew of STS 63. Hi there, Collins.
Dobre Utra, Discovery.
Dobre Utra, как вы поживаете? Все на земле.
Очень хорошо, а вы?
Приятно, очень хорошо. Okay, logics and drivers on, then 250, 270, 270, auto alt, initiate the track, auto burn, and then power down.
And that's a good copy, and we want to leave the RJDA 1 alpha and for L2 and R2 manifold driver on, and that's on 015.
Got it. Wait a minute, let me make sure I get that again. Say that one again.
Okay, the RJDA 1 alpha, L2, R2 manifold driver remains on, and that's on 015.
Oh, the standard one?
Affirmative.
Okay, thanks, got it.
Go ahead, Wex.
Yes, sir, I noticed in the morning messages that 400 feet is the plan. Is that a final, or is Team Zero still working it?
Stand by, Wex. Discovery Houston for Wex with some words on Rendezvous.
Go ahead.
Yes, Wex. The situation at this time is that no final decision has been made on the Rendezvous, whether we stick with the original plan or do the 400-foot fly-around. We're protecting both options at this point. There will be a final management team meeting in about 5 hours, and they'll make a final decision at that point. We are going to be tipsing up deltas for a 400-foot fly-around in the execute package, so you'll be receiving that shortly.
Okay, well, good luck, and I hope it turns out favorable for me. If it doesn't, we're happy, and they can make the decision on the V-bar if they want. We're ready to go.
Okay, that's good to know, Wex. And we'll be passing up during this shift the preliminary burn pads.
As you know, when we cross the terminator, we get a good idea of, or at least the lighting is optimum for checking out the leak. And just to let you know, what we see that's slightly encouraging maybe is that with the manifold unpressurized, the particles that come out are very slow in their relative rates. It's not like days gone by when it would pulse and send out a stream of particles.
Okay, we appreciate that.
The Space Hab module essentially acts as an extension to the middeck of the Space Shuttle, allowing experiments to be stowed along in middeck lockers seen on the right-hand side of this television view. On board Space Hab for this flight are 20 different experiments that have been operating for the past 3 days.
Good morning from the flight deck of Discovery. We're in final preparations for our rendezvous with MIR, which will occur in a couple of hours. We'll initiate the final portion and enter the checklist here in a couple of hours. I thought I'd walk around or float around the cockpit and show you a little bit about what we'll be doing in the next 4 hours. Both Eileen and I will be up in the forward part of the flight deck in our seats for the first part of the rendezvous. And let me step back just a second. The very first maneuver that we accomplished for the rendezvous occurred at launch. We waited until the launch pad was in the plane of the MIR, and then we quickly launched into that plane. Ever since launch, we've been doing a couple of burns to optimize the trajectory in preparation for the rendezvous. When we get into the final portion of the rendezvous timeline here in an hour or two, Eileen and I will both be in our forward flight deck seats. Most of the burns that we accomplish at that point will be targeted by the ground, or I guess all of them will be targeted by the ground. It's all done automatically by computers. We just verify the data and enter it into the keyboards and then execute the burn. As we get into the middle portion of the rendezvous, it becomes ground targeted. We have onboard steering, but it's a manually flown burn. We'll actually control the burn manually via that ground targeting. Eventually we go to onboard targeting, where the sensors on board the vehicle are a little bit more accurate than the ground tracking solutions. And so we do that manually up here in the front part of the flight deck. As we get into the final portion, I will float to the aft station and we'll perform the last couple of burns before getting into proximity operations from the aft station. I will be looking out the overhead windows facing backwards in the vehicle, but of course in space everything is relative, so it doesn't matter. We have a set of controls back here, and we can fly translations of our vehicle with this hand controller and rotations from this hand controller, although the rotations are typically all done automatically. We will acquire a visual sight of the MIR at this overhead window, and I have a COAS sight, or a hard-mounted manual sight in the overhead window. When all else fails, Mike is going to tell you a little bit about his magic devices and his ranging sensors. When all else fails, if they start acting funny or the radar starts walking around on the MIR giving us bad navigation, we always have the old iron sight out the top window, which never moves, and there's no software, and so it's a reliable piece of gear, and then we just fly visually. As we panel around over to the port side of the vehicle, I'll take the camera and I'll offer the mic to Mike, and he'll tell you a little bit about his magic sensors.
And Houston, while Jim is over there on the starboard side, looking out over the overhead window, up that way, basically, Vladimir, myself, and Eileen will be on the flight deck supporting him, and we'll be using the rendezvous tools. And these are computers that we have set up specifically that will allow us to plot the rendezvous going on here and on here. And we'll have trajectory displays from our different sensors that are in the payload bay. I actually have a handheld laser also that I will shoot out of the window, and I will be pointing it up out of the overhead. And this handheld laser is really no different from anything that the police would use to do traffic patrol monitoring. And we can basically point it out of the window and pull the trigger, and I get a readout on the back of it as to how far away the MIR will be, and also how fast Jim is closing on it. In fact, when I pull the trigger, it will actually be displayed back here on these computers, and I can take those range marks and put them into the computer and get an idea as to how our trajectory towards the MIR is progressing. We also have a sensor in the payload bay that is called the trajectory control sensor, and it's also a laser-driven system, and it will be scanning for the MIR from the bay, and I will be displaying that data on these computers also, and Jim will use those to control his approach in the final stages as we get close to MIR. Vladimir Titov will be right behind me, and he will be probably doing most of the photography on the flight deck. We have a whole array of cameras behind Jim, and also we have down here, towards the base of the floor of the flight deck, we have the MIR VHF radio. And this is a simple VHF system that ties both the Mission Control Center and the flight deck here on Discovery, and also the MIR spacecraft together. It allows us to talk to the MIR cosmonauts, and they also to us. And Vladimir will be our chief interface on that radio, although I do think that Jim will probably be speaking on it also. Once we've made our closest approach to MIR, we are going to back away to at least 450 feet, and then start a slow climb up around MIR to high up above it. And while we're doing that, we will keep our payload bay pointed the whole time towards the MIR spacecraft. And we'll be doing this at 400 feet. This will take about 45 minutes to do one full orbit, or one full circle around the MIR during one orbit. And during this time, we'll be running the IMAX camera system in the payload bay, taking photographs of the MIR at different orientations. We'll also use a lot of Hasselblad and 16mm movie. We hope to see some very spectacular shots as we go through sunrise and sunset.
This is all done, as you know, in preparation for STS-71, which will occur later on in the year, the first docking flight that Hoot Gibson will fly. What we hope to accomplish today is an evaluation of the ranging sensors, an evaluation of the handling qualities, evaluation of the procedures used, and the interfaces between our two countries in preparation for those docking flights that will come as we close out this decade. And from the flight deck of Discovery, thank you very much.
This is Mission Control, Houston. We continue to receive a television image from Discovery as Discovery passes to the west of Australia of the MIR space station, currently lying less than 200 nautical miles ahead. MIR is the steady bright light located in the upper center of the television image. Discovery just moving into sunset. Also visible in the image are pieces of ice and fuel that is leaked from steering jets, and also other such items that remain with the shuttle as it circles in orbit and are very visible during times of sunrise and sunset. Those particles show up very brightly.
Discovery, good config. Go for the burn.
Roger, go for the burn.
Discovery for WAGS.
Go ahead, he's listening.
Okay, Eileen, we have been watching you all on the flight deck, and we have been looking at your smiles, so some of this information may have gotten to you by another means, but you are go to approach to 10 meters.
Thank you very much, Story, and to everybody who worked the issue, again, thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you for all you have done. And the go to 10 meters is based on 3 conditions. Ready to copy?
Yes, sir.
That right RCS manifold be closed and not leaking prior to 300 meters, that we will approach no closer than 10 meters. With any further loss of low Z redundancy, you can open up that manifold to regain low Z capability if it's required, and then back out to 400 feet and hold.
Ты меня слышишь? Это Хьюстон.
This test was originally scheduled for a couple of hours from now, but due to the fact that we acquired our VHS communication links much earlier than we anticipated, the test was moved up to help ease some of the timeline later on as we get down to our rendezvous.
Мир, вы слышали Сережу Крикалева с Хьюстона?
Володь, вопрос такой. Это когда ты говоришь с Миром, ты зажимаешь клавишу передачи или ты работаешь в воксе?
Володь, по-моему, это Сережа был, да?
Лена, я тебя слышу хорошо. Как меня прием?
Houston Discovery on CRT4.
Ну, хорошая картинка.
Но это вот он был на дальности 500 метров.
Картинка фантастическая идет, Лен.
Я снимал.
Да так...
Подожди, это с видика, что ли? Елена?
На потокам. Ну просто у нас сейчас он ушел из поля зрения всех иллюминаторов.
А, это вы с видика, да?
Да.
Понятно. Это
Да
сколько
хоть вам
было?
что? Это было 500 метров.
500 метров, понятно. Вот мы соображаем, это, оказывается, наша картинка.
Вот это?
Да.
Да, видно, слева нос высовывается шаттловский, видно.
Да.
Так, это вот Степанович уже снимается отсюда из 9-го иллюминатора.
Ага,
Да,
принято.
Видим, да.
Как кадр, вот спрашивает Степанович?
Хорошо, прямо в центре экрана, все отлично идет.
Картинка хорошая очень, хорошая.
А вот в эти два окошка прямоугольных, мостики их не показывались. Рукой нам махали.
Правда? Вот жалко, сейчас не видно было. Спанч, отличная картинка идет.
Это Валера уже снимает.
Ой, Валерий Владимирович, я даже не заметил, как оператор меняется.
Так я же сказала, смена камеры прошла.
А, вот так, ну,
Да,
ну извини.
ну бывает. Так, ну это вот Степаныч еще тоже показывал там с другой
Что?
иллюминатора. Степаныч еще тоже с другого иллюминатора показывал кусочек.
Ага. Лен, а можно их попросить, чтобы кто-нибудь с шаттла вот в иллюминатор бы что-нибудь ручкой сделал? Ну что делать?
Сейчас, подожди, я тогда сменю гарнитур.
Потому что сейчас вот как раз идеальная картинка для такого момента. Лен, и Степаныч тогда скажи, чтобы вы вдвоем договорились, и тогда 5 с плюсом будет.
Ну вот что-то там такое, но неясное очень.
О, видно, в левом иллюминаторе, точно, отлично.
Это Титов шлет вам привет.
Здорово видно, ладонь.
Это видно, да.
О, видно, весь иллюминатор Титова.
Так пусть вылезает теперь, что же.
Discovery for Wakes.
Go ahead.
You have a go for the approach to 10 meters, starting that on time to arrive at a closest approach at 13 hours, 58 minutes.
Okay, I understand. A go for the approach. Thank you.
Will Mike?
Discovery and MIR are now crossing what is known as the terminator, or the point where daylight turns to darkness. The two vehicles will be flying in the dark with just lights, running lights on them for the next several minutes as the distance between the two spacecraft slowly increases. By the time we reach our close approach point, however, the two spacecraft should be back in the daylight.
This is views on board Space Station MIR of cosmonauts aboard the vehicle. Dr. Valery Polyakov now holding the endurance record for time in space. He's on his 394th day in space. Also in view is Elena Kondakova, who was launched 126 days ago, along with the commander who's operating the camera, Alexander Viktorenko. Use once again out the porthole of the MIR module back toward Space Shuttle Discovery. The two vehicles have now obviously moved into darkness, and we should be acquiring a signal from Discovery of the space station in just a few minutes as Discovery will move back within range of its KU band antenna tracking satellite.
Okay.
Мы не можем с Земли принимать картинку телевизионную. Ну ладно, тогда на словах, как говорится, нам повесить, что все элементы конструкции, никаких там следов повреждений, или что, все на месте, все цело. Блин, ну, в пределах того, что мы видели, конечно. А сейчас в последний момент мы видели...
Лен,
Да, Сань?
вот тебе тут передают это Алгат и Юра. Агатики передают привет вам.
Ой,
There's Delta for you.
привет от нас, от всех.
Большой привет вам. Кланяться. Счастливый и довольный за вас.
Мой красный огонечек видели?
А мы тоже довольны. И за них, и за тебя.
This is Mission Control Houston. This picture of the Russian space station MIR is being provided to us by the low light level cameras on board Discovery. Physician Valery Polyakov, one of the MIR crew members, is occasionally shining a flashlight at the crew members to help with the
and we're thinking maybe you need to pick up our dot a little bit
somewhat
here.
sending them a message from one of the windows of the MIR station. The MIR crew members also have asked veteran cosmonaut and STS-63 mission specialist Vladimir Titov for any information about how the MIR looks. In this particular camera view, we can actually see 3 of the MIR modules and a Soyuz spacecraft attached to the MIR station. At the top of the picture, the smallest module is the Kvant 1 module. In the center, where one of the cosmonauts is using a flashlight to signal the MIR crew, is the MIR core module, and looking directly at the orbiter is the Crystal module. At the bottom of this picture is one of the Soyuz capsules, which the crew members use to go to and from the space station. This is a view from one of the cameras inside the crew cabin of Discovery. This provides a much better view of the Crystal module.
Ой, здесь вроде меньше бликует. Да, понятно.
Discovery is now 65 feet away from the space station MIR. That means we only have about 30 or so feet to go before we reach our point of closest approach. This particular picture is from MIR. And all rendezvous activities continue to go very smoothly. All orbiter systems are functioning as expected. Discovery and MIR are now just south of the Kamchatka Peninsula and just to the east of Japan. The 2 vehicles are about to start a southeasterly sweep above the Pacific Ocean on MIR's 57th orbit of the mission and on Discovery's 57th orbit of the mission and on MIR's 15th orbit of the day.
18 метров.
Слышно было, да?
18 метров.
Принято, 18 метров. Ему сейчас легче.
So this is Mission Control, Kaliningrad. These views now from Discovery looking back toward the Mir space station. One of the items to note of interest is there's a pair of solar rays of the triple set here that will be moved later on from the core module area to the Crystal module. Those solar rays fold up similar to the solar arrays on the Hubble Space Telescope. Those arrays will be folded up and moved by 2 cosmonauts that will conduct a spacewalk during the MIR 18 mission, which is scheduled for launch on March 14th. That mission will carry U.S. astronaut Dr. Norman Thagard. The other members of that mission, again, which is scheduled for March 14th, are Vladimir Dezhurov, who will be the commander of that mission, along with Gennady Strekalov, who will be the flight engineer. Those 2 cosmonauts will conduct the spacewalk, again, while Norman Thagard watches over the systems aboard the space station MIR. That's scheduled again for launch in March 14th.
Wings.
Rendezvous Officer Joe Williams reports that we are right on our rendezvous profile and just about a minute and a half or so away from our point of closest approach. Once we reach that point, Commander Jim Weatherby will put the brakes on Discovery, so to speak, and the orbiter will hold its position for about 10 minutes before backing away. As far as the discussions between the 2 vehicles go, Flight Engineer Elena Kondakova is watching the MIR approach from the small porthole that is at the top of the view from Discovery. It's that small circular dark spot. She has asked the crew members from Discovery several times whether or not they can see her wave. Earlier, the MIR cameras were able to pick up a picture of Vladimir Titov from the windows of the orbiter.
Вот, отлично показываете, отлично.
Да, видно, как движки дуют крепенько.
Houston, we're at 44 feet.
Discovery is now about 44 feet away from MIR.
Молодец, отлично, отлично. And Houston, we basically braked, and we're going to try and maintain this distance.
Copy.
At last report from Discovery, the orbiter was about 44 feet away from MIR. The crew was in the process of putting on the brakes and slowing the motion between the two spacecraft. This particular view is from a camera in the Space Hab module. This is a camera that is very near the position where the docking camera will be when Atlantis docks with MIR later this year. The round structure in the center of this view is the docking port on the Crystal module. That is the docking port which Atlantis will use when the docking actually takes place.
О, теперь видно и наш флаг родной.
MIR, Discovery.
Discovery for Velocia.
Our spaceships closer together. We are bringing our nations closer together. The next time we approach, we will shake your hand, and together we will lead our world into the next millennium. Как мы сблизили наши космические корабли, так мы сблизили наши нации. В следующий раз, когда мы встретимся, мы пожмем друг другу руки и вместе войдем в следующее тысячелетие. Спасибо огромное. Самые прекрасные пожелания нашим будущим встречам, нашей дружбе, нашей совместной деятельности на благо людей. У нас на борту в порядке все. Мы очень рады, что вы с нами рядом. Мы вас любим. Мы единое племя, племя небожителей. Наверное, это самое фантастическое и самая замечательная сказочная профессия, которую мог создать Господь Бог.
This is Mission Control Houston. That was Jim Weatherby expressing his feelings at this historic moment.
That's what we're going to do.
2 left.
In response, Alexander Viktrenko, the commander of the MIR crew, expressed his affection for the STS-63 crew and his pride at this moment in time. He said that we were one and we were human, and that all the crew members on orbit right now were involved in the greatest profession God could give anyone. Viktrenko also has added that this moment in time is almost like a fairy tale. It's almost too good to be true. This particular view from Discovery will provides us with the best view we may get of the MIR core module. The MIR core module, which is the center module, is the central portion of the station.
Just incredible, but it really is amazing how beautiful their vehicle is. Just simply beautiful.
It is just simply stunning.
I mean, even if we weren't here, if I just saw a picture of it up, it's incredible.
And we sure enjoyed all the video.
This is some videotape from the MIR space station that the cosmonauts took during our close approach and our rendezvous activities. They're currently feeding this to the ground via the Mission Control Center in Kaliningrad.
Сереж, дело в том, что
вероятно, они были вот на отходе, то показывали. Вот сейчас...
Discovery has started a slow ascent from the velocity vector.
Да, Сереж, корпус видно.
Это комкодер, да? Вот, хорошо видно сейчас было струю.
Было очень хорошо еще, Сереж, видно, когда он тоже подходил. И малые работы, и вот эти носовые.
Ага, так лучше чуть-чуть отъехать.
Meanwhile, we're getting live pictures from inside the Mir space station.
Потому что она очень нежно подходила.
This is physician Dr. Valery Polyakov.
6 сантиметров.
He currently has the record for the most time spent on orbit by any human.
По весне показывали такие ножнички, говорит, вот, говорит, мы приобрели специально для того, чтобы послать на борт. Замечательные ножницы.
Houston, Discovery.
Go ahead, Discovery.
Yes, sir. As the sun came up, they were in the maneuver, of course, and they're firing jets. We're firing jets. Their arrays are moving.
Мы закончили разворот, у нас есть
It's a beautiful sight. It's a great world.
Понял. Закончили разворот, ГСЦ есть.
It is a great world, Wags. Up there and down here.
Discovery is now slightly above the, is about 45 degrees above the velocity vector as it moves to the point that is directly above the space station MIR for our separation burn. That separation burn should take place in about 3 minutes and 15 seconds and will bring to a conclusion our rendezvous activities for today. The flight control team here in Houston is very pleased with today's activities, and occasionally throughout the day we have gotten pictures of the Mission Control Center in Russia, and there are very happy faces located there as well.
Говорит, да, я слышал, командир говорит, что прекрасно, а нам ваш очень нравится. Но мы вас видели только со стороны спины. Спину хорошо изучили, Володя. Ну, понимаешь, не хочется показывать вам, это не спина, можно сказать, а глаза, тут все иллюминаторы. А животик, ну чего тут, черненький он, закопчененький. Это 20-й полет Discovery.
Discovery for Wags.
Okay.
We are now receiving a live picture from Discovery's flight deck as the STS-63 crew wraps up its rendezvous activities for the day. In the white shirt is STS-63 pilot Eileen Collins. In the forward part of this view, in the red shirt, is Bernard Harris, who's our payload commander, and in the back part of this particular view is mission specialist Mike Foll.
Я тебя слышу просто прекрасно. Я буквально тут на полминутки отвлекся. Фото там и так далее. Вот Айлин передает привет. Ну, спасибо. Скажи, что мы ее по-братски целуем, поздравляем и желаем ей счастья, удачи всегда. Ну и нам будущих встреч всем вместе.
Добрый день, это Айлин.
Добрый день, Айлин. Нам очень приятно услышать твой приятный голос.
Спасибо. I want to say that MIR is very beautiful, and it was very shiny, and we are very happy to meet you in the sky.
Айлин, ваш корабль, ваш Discovery тоже великолепен. И нам особенно приятно было за ним наблюдать, зная, что ты находишься в этом корабле еще и пилотом. Всего самого доброго тебе.
Спасибо. You are very nice, and maybe someday we can meet. До свидания.
До свидания. Счастливо. Ну вот, Лена попрактиковалась в языке.
Володя, я смотрю, они все как-то усердно изучают русский язык, да?
Да, между прочим, все нас сейчас изучает русский язык.
Понятно. Слушай, вот я смотрю на 8-е. Телефонные переговоры MIR Discovery.
Hello?
Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. I didn't know you were on the line. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you very much, sir, and it's an honor to be talking to you. Thanks for calling.
I'm glad to do it. We're all following you with great anticipation, and we're all so impressed. You know, this really proves, I think, that Russians and Americans can work together and that we can make this International Space Station project successful. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the work that all of you have done to that end.
Well, we agree, sir. It's what I kept thinking as we were rendezvousing on MIR was it's a great world. They have a beautiful spaceship, and we have a beautiful spaceship built by Americans. We met the people that built their spaceship. They love their space program. We love our space program. And I think together it'll be a lot better.
Well, we're confident that it will. As you know, this whole mission is a number of firsts. You're the first person to ever command our efforts to rendezvous with a Russian space vehicle, and I know that Eileen Collins is the first woman ever to pilot a space shuttle. So, Eileen, I suppose you have literally shown young women all across the world they can fly as high as their dreams will take them.
Yes, and I'd like to say I think this is one of the greatest jobs in the world. And, you know, for any young people out there, if you work hard enough, you can always reach your dreams.
Well, you certainly prove that. Look at that. We enjoy watching the microphone there. I want to ask Dr. Harris to pick it up as it flies toward him. He's going to set another milestone by becoming the first African American to walk in space. So you'll be floating on air, but be sure you...
Yes, sir, and I'm really looking forward to that a couple of days from now. But I know I may be the first, but I won't be the last.
No, you won't be the last. We'll have a lot more if we have you as an example. I'd also like to say something to our Russian partner in space, Vladimir Titov, who's one of the world's most experienced space travelers, and he's the first cosmonaut to see the MIR from an American spacecraft. So I'd like to give you a chance to say anything you'd like to the American people, Mr. Titov.
And good day, Mr. President. Thank you very much. And I'm very happy. I use
this possibility to have this great flight. And right now, our press conference, our conversation, listened on the board station MIR, and the crew on board station MIR sent for you great hello.
Well, thank you very much. I want to say to all of you again that this is very exciting for us. And, you know, the Vice President's here with me, along with Dan Golden and our science advisor, Dr. Jack Gibbons, and we have supported this space program so strongly. And it's been, as you know, somewhat controversial in the United States in the past, but I think that people all over our country and all over the world will be seeing you today and will say, you know, this is something worth doing. And all of you have made us very proud. I can't thank you enough.
Well, we thank you very much for your support, Mr. President. We know you've done a lot of work over the last several years in getting us this far. There's a lot of people around our country and a lot of people in Russia that we owe a great deal of thanks, and of course it starts right at the very top, so thank you very much for your support.
You're welcome, and of course we want to say hello to Michael and Janice too, with whom we haven't talked. We're proud of all of you. Have a wonderful time and come home safe and sound. Give us.
Thank you. As you saw today, Jim Weatherby does a great job of flying this vehicle, and we're looking forward to seeing his landing.
I'll bet you are.
So it'll be a very good one, I'm quite sure.
Well, come home to us. We're proud of you. Goodbye.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
This is Mission Control, Houston. Discovery is currently 211 nautical miles above South America, just crossing at the borders of Peru, Brazil, and Bolivia as it continues on orbit number 61 of this flight. As the crew of 6 astronauts on board Discovery sleeps, the flight controllers here in the flight control room in Houston are continuing to monitor all systems on board the orbiter and also to take a look at the timeline for Flight Day 5 activities that will greet the crew when they awake at 12:52 a.m. Central Time to begin that Flight Day 5 on orbit. The crew had a very busy, very successful, and very historic day today. A day that saw American and Russian spacecraft draw within 37 feet of one another. With Commander Jim Weatherby at the controls, The crew of astronauts on board Discovery intersected MIR's velocity vector at a distance of about 400 feet from that space station. That occurred at 12:16 p.m. Central Time today. All told, Discovery spent almost 2 hours on that velocity vector. That is an imaginary line that's drawn in the direction of travel of the MIR space station. During that time, Discovery slowly edged forward toward the space station, finally holding at a distance of 37 feet before edging away to begin a fly-around and photographic survey of that space station. All of the procedures and systems worked perfectly in supporting rendezvous activities today. Those procedures were developed over the past year by teams of American and Russian flight controllers in support of planned joint operations between the U.S. and Russia. STS-63 was the first of 7 planned missions. In June of this year, STS-71 will mark the first time an American shuttle actually docks with the MIR space station, and STS-63 is providing valuable data on what to expect and how to accomplish that planned rendezvous. Discovery continues to send video of the Earth below as it circles above at 210 nautical miles. Currently tracking to the northeast over the South American continent on an orbit that will take it across over the Pacific Atlantic Ocean. As the crew on board sleeps, the flight controllers are continuing to support the timeline activities in preparation for tomorrow's flight, day 5 on orbit. And our next television event will be a replay of the NASA budget briefing from earlier today with NASA Administrator Daniel Golden. That briefing will begin at 7 p.m. Central Time and will last approximately 20 minutes. At a mission elapsed time of 3 days, 19 hours, 32 minutes, this is Mission Control, Houston.